So last week I picked up a bunch of boxes containing very old hardware. It turned out to be quite the collection of old 8-bit and 16-bit ISA slot cards, controller cards, networking, graphics cards. I was very fortunate to get this in one batch because collecting all of this individually would take a huge amount of time and effort. And I got all of this stuff for free because the guy who gave it to me didn't really need it anymore, and he would rather see it being used than it being ending up in some kind of recycling center. So we have old floppy drives, we have old hard drives, IDE, SCSI, all kinds of different types. We have various old interface cards, video cards. Basically a lot of components which are, not that easy to find and primarily used in very old systems like 8-bit ISA, 16-bit ISA. So we're first going to start by looking at these hard drives. And first up, we have a Western Digital Caviar 2420, a 400 meg hard drive produced in 1993. So this would make an excellent hard drive for a 486 build. And you saw a lot of these around back in the day. Really nice. So here we have an HP 2.1 gigs and another Caviar, this time a 2 gig drive, so a little bit bigger than the previous one. 1997. Next up we have an older one, 251 megs, CP30 254. I love how these PCBs were laid out back in the day. IDE drive, a Connor drive. Really nice. I know these were used in like branded PCs like Olivetti's and stuff. A slim Maxtor IDE drive. Looking for the capacity. So here, 20 gigabytes, IDE. They always put a lot of numbers on these hard drives. It becomes very difficult to find the actual capacity of the drive. But here it is, 20 gigs. So next up, we have this Seagate drive. 1.2 gigabytes. Really nice. IDE. And look at this giant whopper. It's a HP. Looking for the capacity, 4.2 gigabytes, SCSI drive. Has the old SCSI connector. So all in all, quite a nice collection of hard drives, both old and new, IDE and SCSI. So, yeah, glad to see them added to the collection. Next up, we have a very heavy box, which is completely filled up with hardware. I'm guessing 2 floppy drives. I have a feeling these will probably be 360K drives, so they will make for an excellent XT build. Probably end up putting them in a 386 or 486 system to work with 360K floppies. So drive mechanism seems to work fine. That's good. And oh, I already see these big Mfm hard drives there. But before we get into that, we have another floppy drive, an identical one. This one even has a floppy drive in it, apparently. So yeah. Now what do we have here? 4 massive hard drives, MFM. I really wonder if these still work. So we have one with a nice front plate. Just look at that PCB. This is a big Mfm hard drive. Computer Memories Inc. Model 6426. We'll have to look that up. I think these were used in the first IBM ATs, but I'll need to double check. Don't think these drives were very reliable to begin with, so yeah, we'll need to see if these will still work, obviously. But yeah, lovely front panel. Oh, has a loose connector, so probably need to fix that. So yeah. Next up, another type of MFM hard drive. So this is a Rodime hard drive. Need to look up the model number to see how big it is. So I'm guessing somewhere like 20 megabytes. It has the LEDs on the front. It's full height hard drive. Yeah. So we'll need to check to see if this still works. Another Computer Memories Inc. So this is the CM6640. This has 64 cylinders and 6 heads, so it's probably like 35 or 40 megs hard drive. At least the connector is properly hooked up, so hopefully this one will work. And finally, another Rodime with a nice front cover. So yeah, I'll be checking all of these and seeing if they still work. And now onto the final box. So we start with this, what appears to be a Pentium mainboard, socket 7. Has a nice layout, Intel chipset, coin cell battery. Probably have a Pentium CPU for that, so yeah, we'll definitely be checking that out. A box with a video card. Oh, so this one has both VGA and probably EGA with a bunch of dip switches to configure it. So nice. Prism imaging system. Yep, looks like a nice card. So next up we have an interface card, PC Ada 12. So let's see what's inside. Installation instructions, blah 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 blah. Not a lot of information here, so let's open it up. We have a floppy drive, which is always nice. We have an instruction manual. I love the kind of fonts that they use for these old manuals. A 12-bit ADA card, IBM PC version, high precision data conversion system, digital to analog conversion, apparently. So, yeah. So I'm guessing this is probably used to hook up to different machines where you have like a bunch of IOs to play with. Somebody apparently did an aftermarket button on this one. It has a bunch of LEDs, dip switches. So yeah, I'm gonna be checking that out for sure. Now these old PCs in the day were used to connect to all kinds of different machinery. So yeah, I'm guessing this card was probably used in that respect. So yeah, really nice. Next, a very small 8-bit ISA card. Has a parallel port and some kind of graphics port. I'm guessing CGA. You had a lot of these cards back in the day, made by different manufacturers. Another similar card. I'm guessing again CGA, so yeah, look very similar. Also has the parallel port and the video connector. A 16-bit ISA video card, Trident chipset. Yeah, it was very popular back in the day. Not the fastest graphic chipsets, but yeah, very common back in the day. A big card with an RCA connector and a video connector, so probably one of these old CGA cards that came with XT based machines. These typically had this RCA connector, so yeah, really big card. So we have some jumpers here to set it to mono or color. Yeah, I really like these old big cards. It's amazing how they were able to shrink them down to a very small format. Because you know, this one also had the printer port and the same CGA port, but man, look at that size difference. Excellent. And next, what do you know? Another CGA card. Printer port, video port. Yeah. Here we have something else, some kind of I/O card with some kind of mouse connector, probably not PS2. Another controller card with the same type of connector and a parallel port. Here we have a standard serial parallel I/O card, again 8-bit ISA, SCSI chipset. Yeah, nice. Not really sure what kind of connector we have here. I think this is a floppy drive connector on the PCB itself. No idea what this connector is. We'll need to look that up. It also has a Molex power connector on the PCB, so yeah. And some dip switches, of course. And yet another serial parallel I/O board. Not really sure what this is. Probably also an I/O board with some serial ports. Not really sure what these. It has a parallel port and what looks to be like a game port. Not really sure how this was used back in the day. Here we have a networking card with the 10 base 2, the BNC connector, LAN card 2000. So nice. And another network card. We have another networking connector. Has the same BNC connector. The Ether board. Yeah. 1991. Probably use it to set up a coaxial network once I find the time. 16-bit ISA. This is one of these cards that has a real-time clock using this coin cell battery. So you typically have some kind of MS-DOS executable that allowed you to set the time, store it onto the card using the coin cell. Parallel port, game ports, some serial ports probably. I'll probably end up doing another video showing some of the more interesting cards in this batch in more detail. So this seems to be a floppy drive controller card. Yep, pretty simple. So it's probably used in an XT to hook up one or two floppy drives. Here we have I think it's an MFM hard drive controller, 8-bit ISA. I think it's the first one we encountered here. So, yeah, nice. So in the early days of the PC, these kind of MFM controller cards were really full-length cards. So I think this is one from 1988, so it has shrunken in size considerably. Another MFM controller card, again really small. I think there are some bigger ones in here, so yeah, need to check for those. Another MFM hard drive controller card. So we have another I/O card. We have a parallel port, a mouse port, and some serial ports. Another network controller card. I think we already saw this, the Ether board. Another I/O card, a mouse connector, parallel port, and some serial ports. So something still boxed. So this is a networking card, D-Link, both UTP and coax connectors. A 16-bit floppy drive and hard drive controller. Saw a lot of these back in the day. Seems to be a graphics card, but a weird one because it has connectors on both sides. So here we have what appears to be a 16-bit ISA connector, and I'm not really sure if this is PCI. I don't think so. So yeah, so you could probably stick it in both ways. So you would kind of remove this header and just stick it on the other side. So yeah, how convenient. It's an ATI chipset, so I will need to look that up. A Visa local bus graphics card, Cirrus Logic chipset. Probably can extend the memory. Good for a 486 system. Another 8-bit I/O card, serial, parallel, some external connectors. Another 8-bit ISA I/O card with a coin cell holder. And some two massive cards here. Let's take a look. I'm guessing some kind of hard drive control. Yep, MFM hard drive controller cards, 16-bit. So yeah, probably used in the first AT-based systems, 286. Western Digital, 1985. So yeah. And finally, another big card. Again, an MFM hard drive, floppy drive controller card, massive card, 16-bit ISA. And a whole bunch of cables, connectors, and all kinds of crap that goes with it. So as you can see, it's quite a substantial amount of both controller cards, video cards, interface cards, networking cards. We have floppy drives, hard drives, MFM, IDE, SCSI. So yeah, think this is a great addition to my collection of old retro hardware, especially this type of hardware, which is primarily targeting like very old systems, like 386, 286, XT based machines. Some of these cards are really difficult to get a hold of, and you know, I'm not willing to pay these ridiculous eBay prices for them. So I was really lucky to have found this guy who gave them for free. So yeah, feeling I really lucked out on this one, and I'll put them to really good use. So if you like this video, please subscribe, like, share, whatever, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.